Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, this is Jeremy Wagner from Earthburner and also from a band called Broken Hope.
And Jeremy, would it be fair to say that through your work with Broken Hope, the style of music that you're most associated with is death metal?
Yeah, absolutely. Death metal, old school death metal, for a long time with Broken Hope. Earthburner, a bit more on the grindcore side, with some death metal elements. Could call it grindcore or death grind, but death metal seems to be a part of everything I do musically.
So, the era of death metal that you belong to has become um, uh, extremely popular in recent years, almost revered. And we've got a lot of these kind of old school revival bands. Would you mind telling me what it was like in the old days and how you discovered this music? Were you a tape trader? Were you reading zines and stuff
Oh
like that?
yeah. Yeah. I like I'll tell you, Adrian, like I've been telling a number of journalists and interviewers lately, I sound like old man Wagner when I say this, but when I was a teenager and formed Broken Hope, like that's in high school, 1988, and we did our first couple of demo tapes. So I was really into tape trading demo tapes. And um, if anyone listening to your show knows it, Immolation, it was like Immolation, Suffocation, Cannibal Corpse, Broken Hope. We all came out, uh, formed and, came out as bands in 1988. And Immolation, especially Ross Dolan, was a huge help to me in Broken Hope because they really got around with their demo tape. They had one out before us, and they, well, specifically Ross, I should say, of Immolation, had given me a list of all these fanzines that reviewed demos. And he said, send your demo to all these zines. Here's the addresses and tell them I sent you and blah, blah, blah. And our demos started getting reviewed all over the world in the underground in these handmade do-it-yourself fanzines. And from there we just got a bigger and bigger underground reputation. And then right when we got signed, and released our first album, Swamp and Roar, in 1991. So many people had known about us just from the underground. I think we sold like 10,000 copies of that album in the first month or something. And that was pretty good for back then. And then, we were on Metal Blade Records, and I was still, even in the early days, having those first couple albums out, I was still actively promoting the band in the underground. We had a PO box. People sent letters to our fan club. I still remember it too. PO Box 445, Gurnee, Illinois. And I'd always go in there and there'd be mail from all over the world, especially after we got signed. Our Metal Blade had worldwide distribution. And so people were picking our albums up in stores. And I used to personally answer all the email, the old mail, the old school handwritten letters I would write back to fans and stuff. So that was like, it's like a different world now, when I talk about it and look back, it's like, people don't have, fan club addresses. People have emails and social media, and that's how they promote their band. But back then, um, it was all do it yourself. And I was just hell bent on everyone knowing who Broken Hope was. I always had a passion for death metal and extreme metal, and that's what I had to work with at the time was, envelopes, stamps, a pen, underground Broken Hope flyers, and demo tapes that I would dub at home. So that's how we did it. That's really, honest to God, how we built the band up, or at least I did by hand, like really old school. That's what we had. No computers, nothing, no social media. So, um, yeah, it's kind of cool looking back, going down memory lane, thinking about how we did it back then and what how bands. It's a lot easier for bands to promote themselves now, but that's how we did it back then.
Yeah. I'm curious, why death metal? What what brought you into the music and why is this the thing that you ended up spending so much of your life performing, writing, being involved with?
Well, I have very eclectic tastes, I could tell you that. Like as a fan, so I love the Bee Gees, Duran Duran, 70s era Skinner's my favorite band of all time. But there's something about metal that really got a hold of me in a big way. And when I was just getting into junior high, I would have been in seventh grade. I was starting to get into hard rock and metal. And so you're talking like Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest came out, and bands like Crocus and whatnot were coming out. And um, you know, I wasn't like a Kiss fan at all. I was into these other bands I thought had more of an edge and more guitar driven stuff. I was really into guitar, like, before I became a guitar player, and I just sought out more and more metal. And it was like 1984 rolled around, and I like had heard of Metallica, Kill 'Em All, and I'd see them in record store bins, and Slayer too, and other bands. But um, and oh, and Armored Saint, that was a band I really liked, their first album. But 1984, I heard Ride the Lightning, and that album, above all albums that I'd heard before that, as my love of metal grew and grew, and I wanted to hear harder and heavier stuff. That album changed my life. That's the moment, Adrian. I'm like, wow, I want to do that. I want to be a metal guitar player. And that's when right around the time I got my first electric guitar. Um, and then it was just wanting to hear heavier and heavier music. And then, 86 rolls around. 85, Hell Awaits comes out. 86, Rain and Blood, Master of Puppets, and I discover Celtic Frost. And then boom, after that, it's like Dark Angel, Darkness Descends, and Death, Scream Bloody Gore. And man, they just kept going. And then from there, Death turned into, this is my path. And if you follow me, I discovered Morbid Angel, Carcass, Terrorizer, Obituary, Slowly We Rot, on and on and on. And I'm like, man, and then when it got to that point, I'm like, to this day, I'm like, shit, there's nothing heavier. There's nothing heavier than death metal. Sure, everyone's got an opinion about what heavy is. Someone could say a doom sludge band is the heaviest genre or whatever. But for me personally, death metal is the epitome of my brand of the heaviest music. That was my journey to get the heaviest band. Like I wanted to hear the heaviest bands and I wanted to play the heaviest music. And that's why death metal, looking back, since I was in my late teens till now, I'm 54 years old man Wagner. I still have a huge passion for death metal and grindcore. And it's just it's just everything to me. So I don't know if that backstory history of my journey from metal to seeking out the heaviest music makes any sense, but that's the best way I can explain it. And it's just part of my DNA to this day. Just listen to that new Earthburner album. I wrote that, recorded that just last year, and I'm I'm not stopping, bro. I'm like, still loving it. Still love playing it and listening to it in extreme metal. Again, my tastes personally are eclectic, but in a band, what I like to play and do, it's just write and play, relentless, ferocious, super heavy death metal and grind.
And we'll speak more about Earthburner in a little bit. I am curious though, um, as a songwriter, how have things changed for you from when you were writing the original Broken Hope songs in high school to now? Were you demoing stuff on a 4 track back then?
We always recorded in professional studios from the get-go. Now, I would write riffs at home on like basically a boombox, mostly boombox, or I did have like a 4 or an 8 track at one point, so I could do multi-track stuff for harmonies. And I found that Broken Hope's music since Swamp Gore over the course of time with several studio albums just was one part growth musicianship wise for the guys and me, and while still retaining that ultra brutality and not compromising musically or lyrically with that the extreme side. But on the musician side, we got better at our instruments. So I say it'd be like there's just a growth in, you know, how proficient we were at our instruments. We got better and better, but we still kept it sick, as they say, you know. So if you listen to Swamp and Gore from 1991 and every album in between up till Mutilate Assimilated in 2017, you I think any listener would agree that you hear that growth, the whether it's technical playing, harmonies, leads, to song structures. You got all that, but then you still have just sheer, out for blood, pummeling, sheer brutality. That's always been part of the mission. So, other than that, I write all the lyrics for the band. I would say that my lyric writing always got better and better. Just like I write books full time. I'm a published author, so writing is a full-time job, and I always loved it. But I got better as a lyricist, I think. But that's not the content wise, though, is always that's open for interpretation because the subject matter always leaves something to be desired. But you take the music and the lyrics for what they are. There's all I can say is there's definitely been an evolution, but we're still I like to think we're still on brand, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And so with Earthburner and the most recent Broken Hope stuff, have you been using a DAW like Pro Tools or something like that uh, to help with your songwriting or to demo music?
Yep, that's what I use at home. I've got Pro Tools in my home studio, and that's primarily what I use to write and record on. So I've got um there's well actually we just released this is relevant to Broken Hope and Earthburner. Today our like publicity team behind the Earthburner album released a rig rundown of mine. So I'm like showing what I record with and on, and you get a peek inside my studio. And so I've got a lot of gear, and I'll try some different tones and stuff. I'm always seeking the heaviest tone possible for guitar, but the great thing about having a home studio Pro Tools is um, I write Broken Hope and Earthburner stuff there, and I can easily, add, like 4 guitar tracks, some different ideas if I got leads or harmonies and whatnot. But another thing that's great about it is I write stuff that's not even like Broken Hope stuff. I'm talking like shoegazy, cinematic, like movie score, dark horror sounding stuff too. Like I have a guitar synth and a bunch of different things I like to experiment with. But that said, to answer your question, is yeah, Pro Tools, that's all I use now at home. Just to demo with. I don't like record our albums here or anything. I don't got that much room, but I definitely write a lot of stuff for the my other bands, and experiment.
Is the cinematic stuff something that you're interested in doing? Do you want to do film scores and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, I've been interested in doing that for a while. I have a production company. We actually have two documentary films that I think might be coming out next year. So I did music for not the full score. I did some music for those, and there's a couple other film projects that I want to score to. So it's definitely something I'm interested in doing more of. I really like that stuff.
That's great. When you're writing music for Earthburner and Broken Hope, how finished are the demos by the time the rest of the band hears them? Do you do like pre-pro drums and stuff like that?
I in the it's a lot's changed in that regard, and probably in the last decade. I would say if you went back to 2014, like or 2013, say the a Broken Hope album that year is called Omen of Disease. Up to that point, I always, I'm talking like back when Broken Hope started, I would write mostly a whole song on guitar from start to finish, and then bring it into the band and go, here's a song I wrote, and I work with our drummer first and get it, and then bring in the other guys, and that's kind of like how I always wrote. And then things started changing right around 2014, 2015. I started writing more riffs on the spot, like with my drummer. So, like, say we're rehearsing to do a show or a tour, I start writing riffs more spontaneously and having the drummer jump in, and we were instantly collaborating. So that's been a more and more of a common theme in the music writing. But that well, and that's specific to Broken Hope. With Earthburner, I guess the same thing. It's worth mentioning the same thing. I wrote all those Earthburner songs to actual, like, it wasn't a drum machine. It was more like a click track, or even sometimes like like super kind of blasty drum loop kind of things back in the day when I first wanted to do Broken Hope in 2002. So I was doing that, and then with, again, kind of like Broken Hope after 2014, I had old stuff I was sitting on, and then new material that we actually wrote one song right in the studio on the spot. So again, the songwriting, or at least my idea of songwriting, um, has been more collaboration than it is solitary, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. What led you to put Earthburner together? What were your goals at the time?
I wanted to do a real straight up, like, tribute of my own to one of my favorite albums of all time, which is Terrorizer World Downfall, that came out in 1989. That level of grindcore I had never heard before. I mean, I love Napalm Death. They're one of my favorite bands, but there's something about that World Downfall album by Terrorizer that to this day had such a profound effect on me that um I'm like, I want to, like, capture that intensity. You just heard me go on about how I, was on the quest, like Lord of the Rings, for the greatest, heaviest riff of all time. I'm always on that quest, but I'd never done anything super extreme like a grind band like Terrorizer, and again, specifically World Downfall. That's my main inspiration for Earthburner. So, um, 2001, 2002, Broken Hope was going on hiatus, and I wasn't going to waste any time. And I'm like, I'm going to do a grind band. I don't want to do a new, different version of Broken Hope. And Earthburner was the name of a Broken Hope song off our fifth album, Grotesque Blessings. It was two words, Earth Burner, two separate words. And I'm like, I'll make a band called Earthburner, one word. It'll be a grind band and pure terrorizer, world and downfall worship. And that's kind of how it started, you know. I really wanted to do something really extreme, super heavy, you know, and but just sort of like celebrate more of the grindcore side of my, you know, life, what I'm passionate about, and weave in some death metal elements, you know. So I think I pulled it off, and then but Earthburner kept getting put to the side, put to the side. Years went by, and I'd still write riffs and stuff, but never had a full lineup. And then 2011 kind of got a start. We did a 3-song EP for Earthburner and a video. And then 2012 comes along and Broken Hope reforms. And I've been doing that ever since. And Earthburner, I liken it to like this girl that I always had a crush on, but I've been married. And suddenly I got a chance to be with this other girl now. That's kind of like what happened with Earthburner. The Earthburner came back in my life last year, and I'm like, let's do it. I had a full lineup, and it just happened like, or one part organically, and like one part out of the blue, and right place, right time. You know, the lineup is like a dream lineup for me. So, but if hopefully I answer your question on why and how. I mean, that Adrian, this is a like Earthburner's been a long time in the making, as you can see. You know, the seed was planted in 2001, and we finally are here with our first album. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh, do you find writing grindcore is easier than writing death metal? It seems like it's trickier in a way.
Um, yeah, it's like in some regards there's not much of a difference. I mean, I gotta be anytime any riff I write for either of the two bands, I gotta be inspired, and I'm usually inspired by screwing around through my guitar rig and have a really heavy tone that I'm absolutely crazy about, and that I'm like, oh, that sounds sick, and I just start just you know spitballing riffs. I'm just screwing around, and then something sticks, and I'm like, bam, that's it. Um, but and that so that's the approach with both bands. You know, they're not. I don't find one is like trickier than the other. I feel like um, there's certain songs between both bands where there's a little level of technicality, but Earthburner is more of you got a very simple formula. It's like grinding blast beats, then you come in with a I come in with a super heavy riff that's could be considered death metal in style, and the whole point of that riff is to uh contrast the extreme grind and come out of nowhere with some kind of riff that just wants to cleave your head off, right? And then the song is done. But the approach to the songwriting is either I'm inspired by my guitar tone and just come up with a heavy riff, or back to that collaboration type of writing that I told you about. More so with Earthburner, especially, I'll tell Mike, our drummer, like, man, I got a drum beat in my head, and I want you to go like this on a, you know, snare, like a grinding thing, and I'll just come in and start doing something off the top of my head that Mike's drumming that I'm kind of directing him to do, and boom, next thing I know, we got a song. And if you heard it, I don't know if you've heard our album yet, but anyone that hears the Earthburner album, you know, it's like compared to a Broken Hope album, it's way shorter. You know, Broken Hope albums are probably 40, 45 minutes, sometimes, I don't know, something like that. And Earthburner is like, I think under 28 minutes. So, um, and that's with like 10 or 11 tracks. So we just go in and kill. And again, man, it all circles back to World Downfall, Terrorizer. That's like what I wanted to capture. Like to this day, there's a lot of grind bands, there's a lot of grind albums that I like and whatnot, but I don't know. I think that album's got to be the most extreme and over the top controlled drumming. Just the drumming alone is like uh same dude, Pete Sandoval, Morbid Angel drummer or OG, right? It's like what he did on that World Downfall album, that's what planted a seed in my head to go, holy cow, how could I attain that? I can't really do that with Broken Hope, but maybe I could with something else. So it's really where what inspired me. So yeah.
So the first Earthburner album is called Permanent Dawn, and it will be released by M Theory Audio on the 8th of November. Jeremy, can you tell me who is on the roster for Permanent Dawn? Who are you working with on this album?
Oh, like who like who
Who the lineup is? Yeah,
oh, who the lineup? Sure. All right, we've got Devin Swank on vocals, and for anyone who might not be familiar with Devin, he's in a band called Sanguisugabog, which is like the new wave of old school death metal bands that are really popular now. And then we've got Mike Micek from Broken Hope on drums, and then my stepson Tyler Affinito on bass. Tyler also has his own grindcore band called Glory Hole Guillotine that he started back around 2017, I think. And then we also have some guest vocalists. So we have Ross Dolan of Immolation on one track. We've got a guy named Jake Cannavale. He's from a grindcore band out of Brooklyn called Vixen Maw. He's also Jake's a really great actor. He's been in a bunch of movies and TV shows, and his father, Bobby Cannavale, is actually a famous Hollywood actor. But Jake, aside from acting, he loves his grindcore. He's got really sick vocals. So we had him guest appear along with Ross Dolan, like I mentioned, and then Mitch Harris on Napalm Death, longtime friend of mine. I always liked Mitch's backup vocals on Napalm Death albums and live, that high pitched screechy stuff. And
yeah.
I asked him if he'd come and do a guest vocal spot on a track. And he said, sure, send me all the songs and I'll, pick one out to sing on. And when he came in the studio, I'm like, all right, what song are you going to do? He's like, oh, I got ideas for every one. So I'm like, well, guess what? We'll have you sing on the whole album. And he did. And so Mitch is kind of an honorary member. That's what I keep telling people. He's an honorary member of Earthburner. So that said, on Permanent Dawn, we got Mitch across the board and this lineup. And for the next album, still like to, well, obviously the core, Devin, Mike, Tyler, and me are already working on we're writing the next album already, but we got to have Mitch on board. He just brought a whole different level, dynamics to vocally to the album, and just it's just a really cool surprise in a way. We weren't expecting to have like a dual vocal kind of thing going on, but that's just how it happened. So um, that's the lineup, the core lineup, and then some guest vocals on this album.
That's awesome. You've been working on Earthburner on and off since 2002. When did you have the songs for Permanent Dawn finished? When did you know you had an album ready to record?
I had the like I had every song on that album written for a while. before going into the studio. And there's a song called Broken Head. That's the oldest Earthburner song. I might be thinking back, I think that's the first song I ever wrote, Adrian, for the album. I mean, for Earthburner rather. But the one song I mentioned earlier in the interview that, like the collaborating, spontaneously writing songs and riffs with our drummer. We wrote a song in the studio. That song we wrote in the studio and recorded for Permanent Dawn is a track called Like Dogs. And I don't think I actually mentioned that to anyone yet in an interview. So you're the first one, actually. No one's asked about like the kind of like the history or heritage of, Earthburner songs and whatnot. So I would say that maybe there's like 98% of the stuff has been around over the years from 2002 to 2011, and then the rest is like brand new. And then we have a cover song, the last track, Positive Outlook. That's actually a cover of a Corrosion of Conformity song from a album called Animosity. I think came out in '86. So we threw that on there, but everything else has actually been floating around in one way, shape, or form for a while. Like Dogs, that's the newest. That was on the spot.
So I gotta ask, why COC and not Terrorizer?
Well, that's damn. You know what? That's a good question. No one ever asked me that. Why didn't you do a Terrorizer cover? um, I have thought of doing a Terrorizer cover, like Fear of Napalm for one, or Need to Live. I really love those songs. And um, but that said, I just for me, remember when I told you about my evolution of listening to heavier and heavier bands as a teenager?
Sure.
So Animosity, COC comes out. That's a different corrosion of conformity than what most people think of COC as, the like kind of southern tinge, doomy kind of band. That album was like so punk and thrashy and really badass. I love that album so much to this day. And when I heard the song Positive Outlook, the reason I wanted to cover it is the reason I heard it the first time. There's a riff in the end of that song that is super heavy, and then that riff comes back slower. And you see that in a million death metal bands or other bands do that now. Like that, like, playing a heavy song. We even did in Broken Hope, the song Gore Hog on Swamp the Gore has this heavy mid-pace groove riff, totally slamming, and then boom, it's the same riff but slowed down. Dun, 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 dun. That's like COC were doing that on Positive Outlook in '86. So that said, that riff to me was so heavy in Positive Outlook. I always wanted to cover it in Broken Hope, man. Like since we formed, and we never did. We did one cover, Broken Hope. That it was Captain Howdy by Twisted Sister, and then we did that on our third album, Repulsive Conception, because our singer Joe demanded that we do it. He loved that song and whatnot. So we were like, all right, we'll do it. And it was heavy, we made it heavy. And so that same mindset was like, if we ever did that song Positive Outlook, especially through my guitar tone, that riff would be 100 times heavier. And I didn't get the opportunity to do it in Broken Hope, but Earthburner, we're going to the studio, doing Permanent Dawn. And I'm like, guys, listen to this song. I could play it. We could get this song down in a day. Are you down? And I played it. Played the song off the actual album. Then I played it through my guitar, and the guys were like, "Holy shit, that is really brutal. Let's do it." So that's kind of how it happened. You never know. Maybe we will do a Terrorizer, uh, cover someday. But that's coming right out of the box with the debut album, we, in as much as you hear me straight up telling you, I worship World Downfall by Terrorizer. Being transparent, I'm admitting it. That's what made me, it wasn't in the cards to cover a Terrorizer song this time around. I guess it was something else, but that's kind of how that happened.